Patrick Beverley had his first practice with the Chicago Bulls, and afterwards had a press in which we got to know a little bit more about his mindset, about why he joined the team, what he plans on bringing to this team, and we got to hear from Zach Levine and Billy Donovan also. We're going to break that all down, plus talk about the Javonte Greene injury right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
All right, Bulls fans, this is pretty much going to be an update video. Not a lot of Bulls news out there, and this just kind of is what it is when you're in the All-Star break, and the Bulls have been off for almost 7 days at this point. So it's kind of is what it is, but we did get I struggle to call it a presser. It was more like a media availability after Patrick Beverley's first practice with the Chicago Bulls. And I'm just going to read a couple of quotes from Patrick Beverley. He says, "My voice is always the same. I echo the same thing. That's all I'm about, winning. I don't echo, give me the ball. I don't echo, I want to do it my way. My echo has been winning and impacting winning at any level. The way I play, I run through a wall for any team. This is even more. It's the city where I'm from, so I don't know what might happen. I might pull some shit out I never did before. I'm super stoked. Can't wait to get started. This is good energy, fresh energy." Now, the thing is, you guys know, I'm a lifelong Chicago Bulls fan. I live and breathe the Chicago Bulls. And when people are happy and excited to come to this team, it does bring a different feel. On top of that, being from the city as Patrick Beverley is, shout out to the West Side, by the way, it's just that much more important to be able to, to have somebody who wanted to be here. And in this, media availability, he also talked about Billy Donovan and how, Billy Donovan, he played against him in college, and he's kind of really singing the praises of Billy Donovan, which, considering where we are as a Bulls fandom right now on head coach Billy Donovan, you don't hear very much positive about it. The tension reportedly between him and Zach Levine and things like that. Patrick Beverley could come in and be kind of a calming factor for that. And it is good to see that he does want to play with Coach Billy Donovan. And really, honestly, it seems like players have a high regard for Billy Donovan, even though, us that watch the team night in and night out, we kind of have a difference of opinion. We see how he doesn't use players to the best of their ability in the rotations and things like that. But at least for now, Patrick Beverley comes in excited about where he's playing, excited about who he's playing for and with. And as I've said before, hopefully that changes the body language around the team. Hopefully this changes the thought process around the team, and just how the team has seemed dejected in many times in the last 20 games or so. So hopefully that energy kind of changes things around a little bit. This is just, it was fun to see, him saying that he wants Zach Levine to focus on scoring, like, don't pass the ball. Don't pass the ball. It's my job to get the ball to you. You score. And then Zach, even when he came out, he's like, yeah, well, Pat doesn't want me to pass at all. It just, they have a level of camaraderie with each other already, and they haven't even played a single game together. And I do think that is what the benefit of bringing in veterans mid-season does, is that they can come in and kind of slot in. They understand the role. They understand what they do. They understand what they can bring and offer a team. And, hearing in this as well, that Zach Levine saying that he tried to recruit and bring Pat Beverley here a year or two ago, which is crazy to hear and think. So, he says that, he's just somebody you hate to play against, but love as a teammate. And those are the type of players that we do love here in Chicago. And I don't really have any doubt about Pat Beverley and what he's bringing. I think what he does well is things that we do need on the team. Now, the thing around the Pat Beverley signing overall is, when you hear people, be down on him and things like that, is that he doesn't really bring a lot of what we know that we needed, coming into the season, and those things haven't been addressed. But at least the point guard play, the level of intensity he's going to play with, whether he starts or comes off the bench. And that's another thing that Billy Donovan said, trying to find a role for Patrick Beverley. Is it going to be starting? Is it going to be coming off the bench? And that's from the head coach, Billy Donovan. But when you look at what the lineup could be for the Chicago Bulls, we could have a time where it's Alex Caruso, Patrick Beverley out there, Javonte, whenever he does come back, which you have an update on Javonte later, Andre Drummond, bringing in Kobe White, Derrick Jones Jr., things like that's going to be a tough rotation, whether he's starting or coming off the bench. Throw in Dalen Terry in there as well. I do like that aspect of it, and I do think that there is a slimmer of a chance that Patrick Beverley may re-sign in the offseason, depending on what else this team does. If they end up having to move an Alex Caruso just for the financial aspect to get some more things back, you have a Patrick Beverley now in there who's not nearly the defender or disruptor that Alex Caruso is, but you could look at the things that he does bring, and those being things that you need to keep on this team. So, it was just an interesting presser, or media availability after practice. It's good that the Bulls are back in the building. They're practicing. They play again tomorrow on Friday. So, that's going to be interesting to see just how this new look team comes together and things like that. But Patrick Beverley is excited to be here. And that excitement is felt. It's felt in everything that he's released. He released something, being outside the Chicago sign, just talking about coming to this team. You can tell that he's excited to be back home. And so what that means, hopefully that translates to some wins for the Chicago Bulls. They face a team tomorrow in Brooklyn, which we'll preview that game tomorrow morning. But, I'm not necessarily expecting Pat to have these huge numbers, and that would be ridiculous to expect that. But again, sometimes the energy, things like that can change and help the team a lot as they look to hopefully go on a stretch to end the season if they are really trying to get into the playoffs. So, that was some interesting tidbits and things to kind of look at. I think overall for me, just seeing and hearing it and hearing Zach, like, Pat is going to talk. Now, is that talking going to resonate with the players? That's the thing that I've always questioned. And that's the thing that, you're not going to know that right away. We're not going to know that immediately if that's going to help, if it's not going to help. But, at least for right now, some exciting times around the Chicago Bulls. And hopefully Patrick Beverley maybe can come in and help motivate this team. Just pick this team's spirits back up. This has been a team that has really seemed broken in a lot of ways for the most part of the season. Yeah, they've had their stretches, right? They had a 4-game winning streak. They've had their stretches where it's like, hey, maybe they can come out of it. But they're always fought and met back with getting punched in the face, and then their body language changes again. The Bulls have 23 games left on this season. We'll see how many of those 23 games that they can win. I think if the Bulls want to have any hope of avoiding the play-in, they have to win between 18 and 20 of those games, and that's just not likely. Could it happen? Yeah, we've seen teams go on stretches like that, but this team has to be locked in, and we'll see what it ends up doing and coming out from this team. But if they can win 15 to 18 games over the back half of the season, this remaining 23, it really does change some things. But like I said before, nothing changes what needs to happen in this offseason for the Chicago Bulls. And I still very much maintain that thought process. It doesn't change what needs to happen in the offseason, but we'll see. Now, in this practice as well, DeMar DeRozan, Alex Caruso, Goran Dragic, Derrick Jones Jr., all were full participants in practice. These are players that have been sitting, missing games here and there. So, that, at least if the Bulls can also come out of this All-Star break, fully healthy, because we know we're not having Lonzo. Seems like Javonte, we got an injury update on him that isn't too promising. But, if this team can come out close to full health, have all those players available, we can see what this team can really get rocking and rolling. That probably will mean Dalen Terry is not getting minutes for this team. Just want to go ahead and preface that now. And I know a lot of Bulls fans are hoping that Billy Donovan finds a way to keep Dalen Terry in the rotation. I'm telling you now, it's probably not likely, but if he does crack that rotation, the young man's going to be ready. So we'll see what that means. We'll see what it means for this team, what they do, and hopefully, everyone being relatively healthy, we can hit the ground running on the back portion of the season. I got to stop saying half. We are so far past the halfway mark of this season. Now, we did get a discouraging update, at least I took it as that, from on Javonte Greene from head coach Billy Donovan. He's really the only one that's transparent with these. So Javonte was initially given a 4 to 6 week period to be reevaluated. After that 6 week period went by, we didn't hear anything. It's been a month since that 6 week period went by. We got an update yesterday from head coach Billy Donovan. He says Javonte Greene has been running in his rehab process, but he's still a couple of weeks away from being cleared for contact. So what does that mean? If you look at it saying a couple of weeks, the Bulls have 6 games over the next couple of weeks. That would mean that Javonte Greene would come back with 17 games left in the season. Now, we said it before. That is more than enough time to get back in rhythm, get ready for the playoffs, things like that. But there is a chance that's just cleared for contact, right? It could be another week before he's cleared and ready to go. And then at that point, you have to start asking yourself, okay, is Javonte going to have enough time to really get in rhythm if the Bulls especially are only a play-in team, right? If they have to go through that play-in tournament. But, we want Javonte back healthy. So whatever amount it's going to take, key thing is being back healthy when you get out there on the court. But again, this is another situation in which we get a 4 to 6 week time period, and it's going to be basically triple that by the time we actually get Javonte Greene back. So, it's unfortunate, and it sucks that he lost this much of a season, especially in a contract year. I think sometimes we forget that this is a contract year for Javonte Greene. He's 29 years old. He's going into unrestricted free agency for the first time in his career and being a player that has shown he can make an impact off the bench. Now, how does this affect Javonte Greene and his pending contract status? I would say this: if Javonte does come back and he looks like Javonte, it's not going to affect him much. There's still going to be a team, and even if he doesn't, there's still probably going to be a team willing to bet all of, if not part of their mid-level exception on the Javonte Greene, especially if that team is already a near contending or contending team and their only avenue to add talent to that roster is a mid-level exception. They could definitely look at Javonte Greene as being a defender, especially if you can actually play him at his more natural position of the 2/3 rather than the 4, and that could be a player that could be a dog for a team. I still have a low expectation on the Bulls' ability to keep Javonte Greene. That's unless they do some other things on the roster, just looking at things around. But I'm sure Javonte and his agent are looking at this time period and this knee surgery that he had and thinking, dang, this had to happen now. Now, again, this could help the Chicago Bulls end up retaining him. And if it does do that, hey, shout out to that. But you want to see Javonte, you want to see players play on the court. You don't want to see people out with injury. It's not good for them. It's not good for the team. It's not good for the makeup and chemistry. And hopefully Javonte can come back sooner rather than later. But he needs to be healthy to do so. And if the Bulls do make the playoffs, Javonte Greene being healthy, coming off the bench, being the dog that he is going to be even more important for the Chicago Bulls in any type of playoff atmosphere and stretch. And talking about that, we're going to get into next, talking about how the Chicago Bulls outlook looks on actually making the playoffs. But first, we got to get into a word from our sponsor, Aura. I'm sure most of you know anyone can find anything on the internet, including your full legal name and personal email, your home address, phone number, and even your relatives. For me, personally, I never took this kind of stuff seriously, that people can take my personal data and use it for their own financial gain. Well, in 2019, I got my identity stolen, including my social security number and credit card information. And it was a total nightmare getting it all sorted out. From recouping loans that were taken out in my name and shopping sprees on my credit card, there are some really bad people out there, and it's sad to say, but it's true. Do a Google search for your personal information or someone you know and see if a people search site shows up. The information is easily accessible because of data brokers who profit by selling your information to robocallers, telemarketers, spammers, and anyone else that wants to learn more about you. And so for me, protecting my and my family's personal data and information is at the utmost importance because of the terrible experience I had 4 years ago. That's why I'm excited to tell you about today's sponsor, Aura. Aura will identify data brokers that are exposing your information and automatically submit opt-out requests on your behalf. They will even opt out of junk mail and telemarketing lists. Aura also monitors your emails and passwords to see if they were involved in any data breach and exposed on the dark web. Aura's app also features VPN password manager, real-time credit card and identity theft monitoring, internet parental controls, and protects your device from malware. Aura has almost every internet safety tool you'll ever need, all inside one app, which is what makes it so amazing, so that you don't have to use multiple platforms and sites to protect yourself. Let Aura do the hard work, keeping you safe online. And if you sign up right now, Aura will give you a 2-week free trial with my link below. You'll be shocked at how much your private information Aura finds exposed over 2 weeks. I was shocked at how much my information Aura was able to find when I was using the app. Go to aura.com/CBC to start your free trial. Also linked in the description, or you can scan the QR code here. Now back to the video. All right. And so coming back, the Bulls right now, as we all know, they sit at 6 games or 7 games, I think, below 6 games below 500. And so right now, the question is, can the Chicago Bulls really crack that and get into the play-in? They currently sit right now at 2 games out of the play-in behind the Toronto Raptors. So getting into the play-in is very feasible and something that can happen. But when you look at the teams that have improved in this trade deadline, this buyout market, you got the Miami Heat, who added Kevin Love, right? They sit right now as the 7th seed in the Eastern Conference. So that's a team that, at least on paper, they added some talent. It just really depends on what version of Kevin Love is able to come and play for that team. Look at the Atlanta Hawks. They just fired their coach, Nate McMillan. Does the firing of their coaches give them the shot in the arm that sometimes a new head coach in the middle of the season brings for a team? Sometimes we see these teams, the head coach gets fired and then they go on runs afterwards. Sometimes they crumble. So how's that going to react for the Atlanta Hawks? Then the Washington Wizards, another team above the Chicago Bulls, sit at 28-30 on the season. They're 6-4 over the last 10. They won 2 games in a row before the All-Star break. But this is a team that, at least to me, I'm looking at and saying, if the Bulls can play better, right? If the Bulls play better, they can definitely pass the Washington Wizards. I'm not really worried about that. Kyle Kuzma was having a hell of a season. Daniel Gafford is back into the starting lineup for that Washington Wizards team as well as they gear up for that playoff run. And then you have the Toronto Raptors, right, who made some moves. They brought in Jakob Poeltl. They didn't really break up that monotony. They still got Fred VanVleet on that roster as well. But this is a team that has been very much like the Bulls, up and down all season as well. Only 2 games above the Bulls. The Bulls absolutely can get back into the play-in tournament, and I can see them knocking out the Wizards or the Raptors. We'll see what happens with the Atlanta Hawks and the Miami Heat. But when you talk about them potentially getting into the playoffs outright, right? And this is why I say the Bulls would have to go on such a major stretch to really get in and avoid that play-in. And it's not really, with the way that this team is played up and down, I don't necessarily hold that expectation for this team. But when you look at the New York Knicks, I think the New York Knicks have the potential to be one of the hottest teams coming out of this All-Star break. The Brooklyn Nets, you expect the Brooklyn Nets to drop some, but again, they have a young, scrappy team, right? So you really don't know how it's going to work out with the Brooklyn Nets. They are absolutely a team that could fall more so into that play-in area. They sit right now at 10 games above 500. So again, even if they fall, they're not falling out of the play-in. They're still going to make the playoffs unless something drastically happens with that team. But I still look at that team as being a team that's way too talented to fall completely out of the play-in, and they're well coached. And then you get into the top 4. I don't expect the top 4 in the Eastern Conference to really change at all on the back end of the season. You got the Boston Celtics as number 1, the Milwaukee Bucks at number 2. They may flip-flop a couple of times depending on what happens with Giannis's hand. Bobby Porter's coming back for that team. Can Chris Middleton stay healthy? Then you have the Philadelphia 76ers and Cleveland Cavaliers at the 3 and 4 spot. And those teams are playing, I think, way too good of basketball overall, even though there are some issues with those teams to where they're not going to fall. They may, again, flip-flop, but they're not going to fall completely out of the top 4. I think that top 4 in the Eastern Conference is set. So the Bulls are really looking at the 2 New York teams, the Miami Heat, Atlanta Hawks, Washington Wizards, Toronto Raptors. The Bulls are looking to play better than at least 2 of those teams over the backstretch of the season, and maybe one of those teams to go on a considerable losing stretch for the Bulls to really get back into that playoff spot and atmosphere. They're going to more than likely have to go through the play-in tournament either way. It really depends on how high they can get up in that play-in area. And, if the Bulls come together, if they can stay relatively healthy over the back part of this season, if Billy Donovan actually coaches this team as well on the back half of the season, the Bulls can still make it. Now, again, as I've said before, it may all be for naught because my mindset. It doesn't change the work that needs to be done this offseason. It doesn't change what needs to change with this team in the offseason. But if AK and Eversley are focused on, hey, let's at least get into the play-in, let's at least try to get into the playoffs, and then we'll work out and see what we can do in this offseason, hey, that's where it is. But I tell you what, our strength of schedule isn't too bad on the back half of the season either. So I don't want to act like we sit there and we have like this hugely hard schedule. We don't. But the way that the Bulls have played against sub-500 teams, being a sub-500 team themselves, the team can lose to anybody. Zach Levine said it himself. They could beat anybody, but they also can lose to anybody on any given night. So we really have to see how this team is going to step up, stand up over this back half of the season, and this is it. We are back. They had their chance. They had their rest. They had their time to figure some shit out if they did. And I think we got 2 games this week, we got Friday and Sunday, but over the next 2 weeks, between when we come back Friday to next Sunday, between that area, the next 10 days basically, how the Bulls play over these 6 games is going to tell us if they're even going to make the play-in tournament. That's just how I feel. If they continue this losing streak, you can already ride it home, right? It's not going to be much for the Chicago Bulls, but let's see if this team, with the addition of Patrick Beverley, how much that heart and that new energy really does help them in carrying them through the season. And if they play better, they're coached better, we'll see what all happens with this team. But you guys can bet your bottom dollar. I'll be covering it right here on Chicago Bulls Central. You can follow us at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for our mailbag episodes, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related because of you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.